some of the health risks that are associated with NAS and substance exposure. I like to show this to kind of visualize what it means when I say that child is reaching drugs into their system. The placenta the medicines are coming through the mother's blood vessels, and this is how it's going through the placenta over to the fetus's blood vessels. That's how it's going through. Now, not all medicines go through the placenta. That's why when you talk to an OB, they'll say like, oh yeah, that's safe for you to take during pregnancy. That sleeping pill is very safe for you to take. That nausea medicine is very safe because it doesn't break the placenta. That's why these medicines are so dangerous for the pregnant women to take, because it is breaking through the placenta. So all those opioids and stimulants that people take, even anxiety medicine, I don't know if I mentioned that, if a woman is on depression medicine, she's on Zoloft, or she's on some sort of anxiety medicine, that also can cause NAS. I didn't mention that in the beginning, but that's something that's kind of shocking to me. I had a mother that her husband passed away, and she was pregnant with a child that she didn't even know she was pregnant with. So when her husband passed away, she started taking anxiety medicine to calm her down because her spouse was no longer there. That's when she found out she was pregnant, and she had to take this medicine. She didn't know that she wasn't supposed to take this medicine because it was helping her, and it went through the placenta and affected the child, and the child was born with NAS. That's not a person that was, a prostitute on the street that became pregnant. That's not someone who was in a very low socioeconomic status. That's someone who was your neighbor. So that's something to think about too. They have this stigma against them. It's not, this could be anyone. This could happen to anyone. Anxiety medicine is given to most people that need it. So some of the different health risks during pregnancy, the reason why I put this up here is because a lot of those things affect their development. So obviously not miscarriage, but stillbirth, preterm delivery, so if that child is premature, a C-section child that has placental abruption, lower heart rate, and intrauterine growth restriction, meaning that they're not getting as big as they need to in utero. Some of the different medical complications, NAS. Failure to thrive, a lot of those are very much associated with NAS. Prematurity, we know a lot about children that they're premature, all the different delays that can be associated with that. Low birth weight, birth defects, both physical and mental impairments, small head size, and SIDS. SIDS is actually something that I spent a lot of time in parent education classes talking about, because these children that have NAS and have been substance exposed are more likely to pass away from SIDS. So knowing that, and actually above all other drugs, tobacco use is the highest risk for SIDS, just in case you didn't know that. We're going to focus a lot on symptoms of infancy, and this is really where the most symptoms that you can physically see are happening during this time. So their central nervous system have a lot of disturbances from the substance that are exposed to them in utero. Number one thing that you'll hear if you Google about NAS is the excessive crying. What I tried to explain is that it's kind of like having a child that has colic. My mind just went, colic. It's kind of like having a child that has colic. Well, it's not very easy to soothe that child that has colic. These children are more prone to child abuse because it's very, very hard for them to be soothed. And so if you have this child, I know as a provider and as a child care center worker that working in a classroom, I pick up these children. I don't get frazzled very easily around children, around infants, because I know eventually that child will give in. That child will fall asleep. They will get tired. And that, to me, it's not very frustrating, because I know I'm just going to keep on going. And if I swallow you and I do all this, eventually you are going to tire out. And I am older and wiser, and you will give up and you will fall asleep eventually. That is not the case for children that have NAS. And a lot of them have substance exposure. They don't give up. They keep fighting the strong fight, because their bodies and their brains cannot calm down. They cannot release enough chemicals in their brain for them to calm down and self-soothe. So central nervous system is one of the major impacts to their body. So the excessive crying, it's very, very distinct. It's high-pitched crying, kind of sounds like a chipmunk crying. I will play, after we finish this slide, what it sounds like for an NAS, a child with NAS. See what I did there? A child with NAS that has a high-pitched cry. There's a lot of jerks and tremors, jitteriness and irritability. If you hold a child that has these symptoms, it kind of feels like you're holding a child that is having a seizure. One thing that I always tell parents is when you are going, or parents and providers, if you're going in, you're holding this child, do not let your face show that that is something that scares you, because it's something that is very scary when you hold them for the first time and they're shaking, and especially that parent, you want to comfort them and let them know that this is something that is a symptom from NAS, and so this is okay. I'm going to teach you some different ways to help calm this child so the jerks and the tremors will stop. Skin irritation, lots of eczema and diaper rashes. Difficulty self-soothing, like we talked about. Sleeplessness, that's a big one. That's a major one that will disturb them a lot of times later into that preschool age too. Yawning, there's a lot of yawning that happens. And also mottling, which I tried to find a better picture, and you may not be able to see because it's so bright in here, but it's mottled skin kind of looks like you can see the veins in their body. And it typically goes away after about a few months, about 6 months, but it's all over their body, all over their legs. It can happen on their face, or it could just happen just on their trunk area. It can happen in different areas where they can have it everywhere. So what I always bring with me is my child that has NAS. This is my baby, my NAS simulator baby. This is what the average baby that has NAS looks like. What are some things that you're seeing?
Very skinny legs.
Very skinny legs and arms. What else?
Tight closed eyes.
Tight closed eyes. Why are those eyes tight closed?
Stimulation.
Stimulation.
Crying.
They're crying.
Closed hand.
There's another one. Do you see this? Ooh, closed hands.
Yeah.
Do you see that? Sorry, what?
And the whole body is stiff.
Yes, the whole body is stiff. Their whole body is stiff. And so when their fists are really tight closed and their eyes are closed, that's mostly when they're being overstimulated, when they're crying, when they're upset. And so this one actually is a simulator baby, so I'm going to turn it on. The sound that's playing on here is an actual child from the NICU that was recorded crying. And it's actually going to jerk too. It's going to have tremors. As you can see, you can kind of see its body. I'm going to, instead of pass this around because this is really loud, I'm going to put it when we have a next break. And I really want you to try to pick this baby up and feel what it's like when they have a tremor, because I want you to know what that feels like. I want you to experience that so you don't freak out, so you're not, oh, why are they doing this, and give them back to the parent. I want you to know that this is something very normal as a side effect and some things that you can do when that happens. So, put my baby right there. Some symptoms, some motor development. That's also a major disturbance that happens in their body. There's a lot of abnormal muscle tone. When I get a child that has NAS, a lot of the times we see that they can turn over really early, like a few weeks. That's not actually normal. That's not something that a 2-week-old baby should be doing, is not turning over to their stomach.
Yeah.
Which again, remember those SIDS risks, that's where that's related. So when you're picking up a child that may have NAS, you're going to see a lot of abnormal muscle tone, like she was saying. They're going to be really clenched, their fists are going to be super tight, and when you hold them up, you're going to have that atypical muscle tone. So they're going to hold their head up, they're going to hold their arms out, they're going to look like Superman, that Superman pose like this, and hold their legs out. A 2-week-old child should not be doing that. They should be, limp to the body. They shouldn't be holding up. And so that's something that I talk with the parents about when they're saying, yay, they're rolling over. This is so exciting. My baby is so smart. And that is one of those moments when I'm like, oh gosh, because I have to basically pop that bubble and say that this is something that shouldn't really be happening. Your baby's turning over really, really, really early. And so we want to slow down. We want to slow down a little bit. That's awesome that they're turning over, but let's slow down a little bit, because before we know it, they're going to be walking. Just make it to a joke a little bit. But I pick them up and say, like, look, and show them, like, your baby is so strong, you're right. But we want them to relax a little bit. We want them to relax their body, because when they're this tight, that baby can't go to sleep. That baby can't relax. That baby can't use a pacifier, because they're so tight and they're so concentrated on keeping that body tight, that high muscle tone. They can't relax enough to soothe themselves even. So delayed gross motor skills, such as rolling and sitting up, delayed reaching and visual motor skills, delayed grasping. That baby that has that hand in a constant fist cannot reach out and pick up Cheerios very easily, can't grab toys very easily, can't reach up and grab toys on a mobile because their hands are in that tight fist because of the tightness and the high muscle tone. They're also unable to release objects. I can remember working with a child with NAS very early. Actually, Chase had come and worked with us in our classrooms, and that was something that I really didn't notice very, very early on, because she would just carry around something all the time. And I just thought, she really likes that. What I didn't realize is that she couldn't let go, that she had an issue with, picking up something and letting it go. And that's actually, on the AEPS, that's something that I look for now when you're going and doing those assessments. Can they grab something and let it go? That's something I never would have thought to look for, but it's because they're so tight. Once they actually do peel their hand open and grab something, it's stuck there.
Yeah.
That can also relate to feeding issues, because if they do pick up something, Cheerios, how are they going to get it from this fist to right here? How frustrating is that to open up their hand to relax enough to get those Cheerios into their mouth? So think about all the different things that are related to just that motor development. Also, some sensory development issues. They don't like to be touched. A lot of these children have a symptom of sensory issues. They don't like to be touched. They don't like to be picked up. They don't like to be moved from one place to the other. Think about that. Their brains are not able to pick up those sensor issues very, very easily. So if I pick up this child and I say, okay, I'm not going to pick them up like that. Don't judge me. But I pick them up from here. It's because I'm having to hold the microphone. Okay, so I pick them up from here, and I go here, and I go over here, and I put them down on the diaper change table. That's a lot. That is a lot. That's overstimulating them. Something as simple as going from here to here is too much for them to be able to process. So we'll talk about some intervention strategies with that. The GI issues are also something that's really affected. Excessive sucking, poor feeding, vomiting, and loose stools and diarrhea. That's something that I also like to educate the child care centers about, because you'll have these families that are these children are constantly sent home sick. They're vomiting, they have diarrhea, they're sick all the time. Well, yeah, babies are sick a lot. Their immune systems are, starting to develop, and they're trying to get past all these bugs that are being passed around daycare. But this is actually a symptom. And so educating the parents so they can be an advocate as well for their child, so they can go to the child care center and say, or church daycare, and just say, please stop pinching me. My baby is vomiting because this is something that's related to the acid reflux that the child was diagnosed with from the NAS. Or they have diarrhea because their bodies are having a hard time processing all of these nutrients in their body, and they're just having diarrhea. So just knowing that and having them, you be an advocate and educate the people that are also caring for that child is really important. And also some metabolic and respiratory disturbances. Hyperthermia, which is being overly heated. I went to a home visit actually on Friday, and the mom was a first-time foster mom, and I walked in and the baby's laying there underneath the fan with just a diaper on, and she was like, "You came 5 minutes early. I was just going to put a onesie on. Please don't judge me that my baby's in a diaper." And I was like, "It's fine. Like, it's fine that your baby's in a diaper. It's totally fine." And she was like, "He's just so hot. He sweats all the time." And then we had that talk about actually that's, a symptom from NAS. That's a symptom from substance exposure. And so those children are very overly heated. They run a high body temperature. That's also that point where that mom needs to know that, or caregiver needs to know that, and they can tell grandma, "Please stop calling me because my baby has a 99-degree fever, low-grade temperature." It's not really low-grade temperature. That's just actually their normal average temperature on a daily basis. They're just that hot all the time. Sneezing and nasal stuffiness, also get that one a lot. I have a lot of teachers that would try to send the baby back home with mom because they have a cold. And then I have to say, "Well, what was going on? Why are they sneezing so much?" "Oh, well, you had 5 people in your classroom and everyone was singing and dancing, and then that baby is sneezing because it's trying to flash a red light warning to you that I'm being overstimulated right now, I'm sneezing, trying to tell you that this is way too much right now, everybody get out." And then nasal flaring, that's something too, because they have a lot of respiratory issues. You have a lot of underdeveloped lungs associated with NAS, and a lot of asthma, a lot of breathing treatments, things like that. So that nasal flaring is them trying to be able to get some more oxygen. Overstimulation. We're going to spend a bit of time talking about overstimulation. A child that is born with NAS or has been substance exposed is 1,000 times more stimulated than a regular developing infant. That's pretty shocking to me because babies are overly stimulated easily, very, very easily. I'd like to think of it as, on Thanksgiving, everybody comes into town, everyone's so excited about to see this newborn, and that baby goes from mom's arms to grandma's arm to auntie's arm to uncle's arm, and then what happens to that baby? They're flashing those warning signs to mom, "Please take me out of here. This is too much. I'm crying, I'm fussy, I'm hot, get me out of here." That's what a normal baby, normal, typically developing baby would go through. Now, an NAS child is like going to Walmart on Black Friday. And you are there and everyone is rushing through the doors and the lights are really, really bright and the sounds of everyone screaming because they want that new game system this year. And that is what it's like. And they're sitting there in that stroller just freaking out because that's what it's like. That's 1,000 times more overstimulated. That's every day for them. Black Friday at Walmart is the only thing I could think that'd be 1,000 times more stimulating for me, where I feel like I get into the aisles and I'm just like, I need to get out of here. That's what it's like on a daily basis for them. So talking about that overstimulation is a huge part of NAS. Talking about what are the warning signs that your child is trying to show you that they're being overstimulated right now and we need to back up. Some of the signs of overstimulation: frantic stress, just freaking out, yawns, coughs, and sneezing. When I went to go visit a kiddo the other day and I walked in, she was getting ready to eat and just constantly over and over and over again. Dad was like, "What is going on?" And so, I had to talk about like this is different. You usually don't have a lot of people coming out here and visiting you, and then today, mom's here, she took off work because she wanted to be here for that first visit, and grandma wanted to be here too because she wanted to know what's going on, and then I come in, and then you woke her up to see me, and that was not really normal because she sleeps a little bit later, and she's sneezing her head off, and we can't do anything because she's sneezing. That's where I would come in and say, this is a warning sign right here. When else does she do this? Let's talk about this. That's that baby's warning sign that, they're getting overstimulated right now. Increased muscle tone. If you have a child that all of a sudden shrinks up and starts arching that back, a lot of that is very much overstimulation. They're flailing their arms everywhere. It's very comforting to have them come to the midline, but it's very uncomforting when that child is flailing their arms everywhere, kind of waving you down, trying to say, please, please, somebody take me out of this room. They're irritable. they have disorganized sucking, so that regular sucking pattern is not there. So meaning that if there's a lot of people in the room on Thanksgiving and that baby's being passed around everywhere, it's probably not a good idea for that child to have a bottle in the same room as everybody, because they're going to have disorganized sucking. They're going to stop sucking for a little bit, and mom's going to think, oh, they're done, and then they're going to start crying again. You're just going to have a constant battle on your hands of trying to figure out what's going on. And then, of course, the crying. Something else that you will see about children that have NAS and substance exposure is something called yo-yo behavior. That means that the child goes from being overstimulated to all of a sudden being understimulated and falling asleep. There was a million different videos that I wanted to show you. One was the baby that the mom is doing the same things, and all of a sudden the baby just shuts down and just goes to sleep. That doesn't mean that the mom was like, yes, I did it, I won this battle, I did all the things I needed to do, and I did this, and I did and I put the toy in the face, and she fell asleep because I know what I'm doing. But because that baby was so overstimulated that its body and its brain chemicals could just not focus on that, it's too much stimuli, and it just shut down. That's called yo-yo behavior. So if you have a child that is going in between being overly crying, overly upset, excessive crying, all these things, and then all of a sudden just switches and goes to sleep, that's not a good sign. That's something that we need to also be aware of, because what happens is maybe one of those reasons that baby is crying is because they had a dirty diaper. Or maybe that there was something wrong and they had a string wrapped around their toe and it was cutting off their circulation. That actually happens. Or maybe it was that they're hungry. But we don't know because that baby fell asleep, and now that problem is still a problem. It's just that the baby is now asleep. So majority of the times that baby is actually hungry, and they're trying to give you those warning signs, and they go to sleep, and now you have a double problem in a few minutes when that baby wakes up and they're hungry, and now they're even more overstimulated. So it's really important to know what yo-yo behavior looks like, and to let them understand that it's actually really important for children to have a regular schedule, regular routine, because we know what to expect. We know that around 10 o'clock this baby usually takes a bottle, and at 10 o'clock all of a sudden they pass out because mama came over and is visiting and they fell asleep and they're just, oh, they were just really tired. Most likely they were still hungry at 10 o'clock. That doesn't change. And so we want to still offer them the bottle, but remove all the stimuli from that environment.